Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. The security situation in parts of Egypt is unraveling, and it's drawing attention to the fight against Islamic extremists throughout the region. Like in Libya, ISIS seems to be making a greater play for influence in eastern Egypt in the Sinai Peninsula in the hopes of expanding the so-called caliphate. Here with reaction is Fred Burton, Vice President of Intelligence at the geopolitical firm Stratfor, and Oren Kessler, Deputy Research Director at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. First, let me come to you, Oren. How big of a threat is ISIS now to Egypt?
Well, the Egyptian government now sees itself, and indeed many Egyptian people, as sort of squeezed in a sort of vice between the Islamic State or its local affiliate in the Sinai Peninsula, and then another Islamic State affiliate on the other border, on the western border with Libya, while at the same time they're dealing with unrest and dissatisfaction from the Muslim Brotherhood across the country. So for Cairo and indeed for many Egyptians, it's really an existential crisis at the moment.
Fred, you know, Oren just talked about Cairo and Egypt proper. We saw just a week or so ago that their chief prosecutor, their equivalent of their attorney general, was assassinated. We've seen attacks in eastern Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula. What kind of a threat do these jihadist groups present to Egypt proper?
Well, you ask an interesting question, KT. When you look at the sophistication of the attack and murder of the Egyptian prosecutor, that's the kind of bomb that should frighten us all, based on not only the sophistication but the subject matter expertise in putting that attack scenario together. I can recall working cases in Egypt years ago, and you would have a tremendous amount of cooperation at times with the Egyptian state security apparatus. And the one thing that frightens me today is I'm not so sure that same kind of liaison exists. And as you look at that from our own homeland security, these are the kinds of allies that you do need in order to make sure we're safe and secure here in the United States.
Oren, when you look at the entire region and the expansion, ISIS seems to be expanding everywhere, North Africa, the Middle East, the Levant. Is there anything the United States should be doing to help stop the spread of ISIS?
Well, if we look at it simply from an Egyptian perspective, I think perception is everything. I think there's an impression in Cairo that Washington is no longer a reliable ally. You may remember that up until recently, until earlier this year, much of the military aid that the U.S. gives to Egypt every year was withheld in protest against what the administration deemed the Egyptian government's violations of human rights, etc. It's severe crackdown against Islamists. Mm-hmm. And this aid was withheld at a time when Egypt felt that it needed it most. So it's unsurprising that Egypt has gone to France, to Russia, to various other places instead of Washington. So I think perception is key here.
You know, Fred, some people have said that, well, the Egyptian government is cracking down on the Muslim Brotherhood and other more radical groups, and that's forcing Egyptians into the arms of ISIS. You know, what's your reaction to that? And is there a real basis of support within Egypt for the kind of radical, violent jihad that ISIS presents?
I think when you look at Egypt, you have to put it in context with just due to the sheer size, not only the number and volume of potential sympathizers, but it's such a hodgepodge mixture of various terrorist organizations, from the Muslim Brotherhood to your variants like Al-Qaeda, and it becomes an intelligence challenge for the Egyptian security services to be able to stay on top of these individuals. And that's what I really, really worry about, because we saw many of those 20 years ago, those suspects show up here in the United States and carry out attacks and killings, such as the murder of Rabbi Meir Kahane in New York City.
Oren, you know, the popular opinion, Sisi a year ago was considered the most popular man in the country. He could do no wrong. The Egyptian people were wildly behind him. And now that popularity seems to be slipping. Do you think that Sisi is in a position to do what he has to do to get rid of or stop the spread of radical Islamists or ISIS in Egypt?
As you mentioned, you know, I would argue that he's got significant support. President Sisi does. I would argue he's got a majority of the population, perhaps not a huge one, but enough political capital to do the things that he wants to do. But as you mentioned, his support is eroding. I think the heavy hand President Sisi has taken against journalists, the heavy hand he has taken against the Brotherhood and other Islamist groups, against free speech, against criticizing his own regime, have alienated quite a number of Egyptians who otherwise would be well disposed to the stability that he claims to bring. So I think he does have significant support, but it's in danger of eroding further.
Fred, I'm going to give you the last word. Let's flash forward a year from now. Is Egypt potentially going to be like the jihadi chaos of Libya, or could we be looking at a potential civil war, like Syria's civil war in Egypt?
I think we're going to see more of the same, meaning until the Egyptian security apparatus hunts down and either kills or captures the bomb maker that carried out the assassination of the prosecutor. That's the kind of game changer that we need to stay on top of. Who are they going to kill next? Who are they looking at from a pre-operational surveillance perspective? But I think over the next few months, we're just going to see more of the same kind of internal chaos that we have seen so far.
Thank you both, Fred Burton and Oren Kessler. And check out foxnews.com for more on this fight against ISIS. I'm KT McFarland. Thanks for watching.